Last week, NIO opened at $4.09, pushed up and hit resistance at $4.44 before closing back down at $4.03. So a bit of a bearish week for NIO, but in this video, I want to talk about why that's completely normal for the price action, considering the 3 strong weeks it's had since the bounce off the $3 support. And also look ahead to the earnings report due on June the 5th and how that date could trigger NIO's breakout to the upside. Let's take a look. So we can see on the chart here, last week NIO opened just above $4 and there was some buying interest. Buyers pushed the price up to the resistance level of $4.44 before the buying interest ran out and some sellers came in to take some profit. And eventually price closed back down at $4.03. So pretty much the open and the close around about that same point. And we can see on screen that level of resistance around 444 does correspond to this sideways price action here during December, January and February. So it looks as if now NIO might have a couple of weeks down before trying to push on further up towards the bottom of the trend line, as per my previous videos. And this is normal. When we think about the price action of NIO since it found that support at $3, it's completely normal for stocks to move up. Typically when they move up, it's between upward legs of 3 to 5 before having breathers of 1 to 2. So you can see since the $3 low, NIO has made a strong move up. 2 weeks ago it peaked out at 424 and then last week it's made a new peak of 444. But a bit of selling pressure last week with price closing back down under the open to create a red bar. So effectively what we're seeing is this. So I'm expecting price perhaps to move down a bit more in the next week or 2 weeks before pushing off once again to try and challenge the underside of this trend line before earnings is due on June the 5th. So that's what I expect to happen. So we might have another week down this week. You can see the bar here for this week forming. I'm recording this on the Tuesday, so there's obviously another 4 days of trading to go to form this complete bar for the week. But I am expecting price to move up, pull back for 1 to 2 weeks, and then challenge this underside of the bar and potentially reach $5 before earnings. And then of course, once the earnings come out, we might have positive news and to give us that catalyst of perhaps having a price breakout. Of course, the news could be positive, could be negative, could go either way, causing investors to either buy up more stock and price will break out to the upside, or perhaps price could fall if investor sentiment is negative, perhaps if the earnings aren't what is expected. So NIO have just released their delivery data for April 2025, and in their official newsletter they have confirmed that the company delivered 23,900 vehicles in April 2025, representing an increase of 53% year over year. And the deliveries consisted of 19,269 vehicles from the company's premium brand NIO, 4,400 from the company's family brand Onvo, and initial deliveries of the company's smart high-end new car brand Firefly, which started in April 2025. Cumulative deliveries reached over 737,000 as of April the 30th, 2025. So these numbers for April do look positive for NIO and show the company's making good progress. And looking at the analyst rating from the data I have in my TradingView software, we've got a price target of 527 based on 24 analysts offering their 1 year price forecasts. And currently the analysts have NIO rated as a buy. And the technicals are still showing neutral, which makes sense because it's still in a long-term downtrend. And as we know, it's trying to find support at $3, move up and form a short-term uptrend towards the underside of that trend line. So the April delivery data looks positive for NIO, and that's great taking that information into the first earnings report for Q1 overall. But Of course, the big question is, can NIO cut their losses? Can they reduce their losses overall to increase investor sentiment? And I think that's the big thing that's going to have the biggest impact on the earnings report, whether the amount that NIO has saved or making progress towards is reducing. Now, we can look at the financials for NIO here on screen. And one thing that's important to look at is the net income and year-over-year growth. So we can see from the previous 2 quarters that there was obviously a net loss of 717 million in Q3. And then for Q4, NIO posted a net loss of over 900 million. These are the numbers that really have to improve for investor sentiment to change from negative to neutral to more positive. I think what will be positive for the Q1 report is if we can see this figure be reduced by around 20%. So let's say, for example, they do post a net loss in Q1. However, the net loss perhaps is around about minus 600 million. And then in Q2, perhaps that could be reduced to minus 300 million. And then by Q4, as per what William Lee is suggesting, could they break even by Q4? Could that figure be reduced to maybe minus 200 million or even zero, even break even? It is possible, but I think the Q1 report is going to be really interesting because it needs to show significant progress in the bottom line. And they need to show there is significant progress towards reducing overall losses. And if they can do that, I think we're going to see the sentiment on the chart. So obviously we've got about 4 or 5 weeks until earnings is due on June the 5th. And so what we might see is this price just pull back for this week, maybe next week, before pushing on once again, pushing towards that $5 level just under the resistance line. So in the next few weeks, what do I expect to see? Maybe we'll see a price pull back in the next 2 weeks. Maybe it'll hold above the sort of $3.75 level here before it pushes off once again, challenging this $5 level here, coinciding with the earnings report, which is due on June the 5th. As I mentioned, if the earnings report is positive, we might get a breakout to the upside into this green zone here. And we know from previous price action, NIO's price can move quickly if investors come back in. So if it does break out to the upside and breaks the $5 level, it could well move quickly towards this peak here of around about 777. You can see these 2 weeks here. It only took 2 weeks to move up from 570 to 770, which is an increase of 30%, so a big jump. If you're finding value from my analysis of NIO, please hit that subscribe button and also leave a comment down below. What do you think? Will the Q1 report be positive? Will losses be reduced? And will we get a breakout to the upside? Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.